everybody. Good afternoon or good morning. My name is Morty Goldstein. And I mean, I don't know if everyone can hear me. I assume so. So maybe someone can let me know if there's a problem. But good morning. My name, as I said, is Morty Goldstein, and I'm here representing the Awesome Student and the Awesome Student Gap Year Program. The Awesome. Do you want to go to the next slide, Benj? Sorry. Awesome Student is an organization with centers in Johannesburg and Cape Town in South Africa, in Melbourne and Sydney in Australia, and in Jerusalem in Israel. As you can see in the slide, we are focused on engagement with high school and post-high school students, with a particular focus on Judaism, Israel, and what it means to be a proud Jewish person in the modern world today. Next slide, Benj. Awesome Student it offers a whole range of various programs. Some of the programs that you may have heard of are obviously the Awesome Gap Year program, but we also offer a 2-week trip in July. There's regular learning and other different kinds of sessions. There's a much more comprehensive trip in December. We often run leadership, networking, and business trips and seminars. In previous years, we've run trips to like Spain and to New York, which are focused generally around leadership and networking. And obviously, there's all kinds of other events around the various Jewish chagim and festivals, and that happens throughout the year at each of our centers across South Africa and Australia. Next slide. The Awesome Gap Year program is one of our flagship programs, and is the program that I'm very much involved in, and I work a lot in the logistics of the program as well as in recruitment for upcoming years. As you can see on the slide, the Awesome Gap Year program is a 10-month program from February until November, and it's offered to both South African students and to Australian students. And throughout the year, throughout the program, our students are based in very high-end and beautiful apartments right in the center of Jerusalem. I don't know how well all of you know Israel and all of you know Jerusalem, but if you know the Shuk, if you know Ben Yehuda, if you know like the center there in that like triangle near Nachlaot, that's where all of our apartments are, and those apartments are the home base for the year. Right, so that's where you live, and we've obviously got girl apartments and boy apartments, and those apartments are your home, which means that you live in apartments like normal human beings. You don't like live out of a suitcase the whole year, and from those apartments you go out to do all the various trips and programs and activities and different things that we have spread out throughout the year. Next slide. The year itself is divided up into 3 major sections or 3 major components. The first and really the most significant, both in terms of time and importance, is education. Education is a combination of different things, which include internships, Jewish learning, volunteering with Magen David Adom, and other educational opportunities and experiences. There's travel, which is 2 major overseas trips, one to India, where we go hiking through the Himalayas and do a tiger safari, and one to Europe, where we go to Poland, obviously, and then do traveling around to another few countries, like we've been to Norway, to Amsterdam, to Venice, Croatia, Paris, really a whole range of different places. And we're always looking to add new places to our list, which is always very exciting. If you look behind me, I don't know if you can see my video, but if you look behind me, that's Tromsø, where we go to see the Northern Lights in Norway. And so that's the travel component of the year. And the last component of the year is other like skills-based or experiential activities, which is everything from skiing in the north of Israel to diving in the south of Israel, kibbutz, sarel, running the Jerusalem Marathon, and really a whole range of other activities and programs. Benj, we can go to the next slide, which I think is a video, and let's see if the sound works. Okay, so we're just going to jump very quickly into a sample itinerary. I just want to emphasize that this itinerary is based off of one of our previous years on the gap year program, and is not necessarily what next year is going to look like. It's just to give you an idea of what the year can look like in general. So as I mentioned before, the gap year program normally starts at the end of January or the very beginning of February. And the first thing, or one of the first things that we do, is we head straight up north for a skiing trip on Mount Hermon, in the very north of Israel. And that's normally like a 3 or 4 day skiing trip. And then after that, we return to Jerusalem to settle into the apartments, to have like a bit of an orientation, get to learn the area a little bit, get set up in terms of Rav Cubs and travel and transport around. We normally start a learning program then as well, like a bit of a Jewish learning program then, and we do a lot of really fun activities. In the past, we've done like escape room, Segway tours, visiting a chocolate factory, and all kinds of really cool things. And then normally at the end of February, we head to Eilat for a scuba diving trip, which will give you a 1-star open water PADI certification. And then we head back to Jerusalem. In March, we do a bit of a learning program, and the learning that we do, the Jewish learning that we do on the program, is normally quite different to anything that our students have experienced in school. The Ohrsom Gap Year program is not a religious program, which means that at no point in the year does anyone ever have to keep Shabbos or put on tefillin or daven or dress differently or doing different things. However, Judaism is a very important aspect and element to the program, and so there is a Jewish learning and there is a Shabbos experience, and the Jewish learning, as I said, is normally very different to what you have experienced in school. It is broken up into chunks of 1 or 2 weeks at a time and spread out throughout the whole year. The learning normally starts at about like 9 or 9:30 in the morning and runs until about lunchtime or a little bit after lunchtime. And then in the afternoons, 2 or 3 afternoons a week, there's lots of activities and stuff, and really fun things. So that's just a little bit on the Jewish learning. Then, as I said, in March, we do a little bit of learning. We do Sarel, which is an army experience. We do Yam Liyam, which is an incredible hike across the whole of Israel. And then normally in March or April time, there's Pesach. We do kibbutz, and we do the India trip. And obviously each year the dates of Pesach shift slightly, which will obviously also just impact when exactly the various trips happen. So India normally happens just before or just after Pesach. And in India, we fly normally into New Delhi, and we spend like a day or two touring around New Delhi, and then we go to Dharamsala for a hike through the Himalayas. And we normally have to get to spend like a really incredible Shabbos there as well, in Dharamsala. And then we head to a different part of India for the tiger tour, or for the tiger safari, and that's really incredible. We do like a tiger safari there, get to see tigers in their natural habitat. And even one year we managed to go on elephants. We went on an elephant ride to see the tigers, which was a little bit crazy. And then normally either in between the Himalayas and the tiger safari, or just after the tiger safari, there's another like day or two of touring around New Delhi. And sometimes we're able to throw in a different activity. So for example, in previous years, we've been to see an IPL cricket match in New Delhi, or we went to the Taj Mahal one year. So it really depends on the year and the exact schedule. But India is a truly incredible component of the year. And then at the beginning of May, we finish up the India tour, return to Israel. We do the MDA training and then the volunteering. MDA is Magen David Adom, which is the National Ambulance Service in Israel. And that's the like volunteering on ambulances with real Israelis, real emergencies, all kinds of interesting things. And that is like quite a long chunk of the year. It's about 5 or 6 weeks. Takes us through May and most of June. And then at the end of June and beginning of July, we do a lot of touring around Israel. So sometimes that's with other awesome students that come to Israel. Sometimes that's just other touring around. So it's a trip to like Eilat or the north. A lot of activities in between. And then in July, we normally do an Israel Advocacy program, which we've done through Stand With Us in the past. And we do some more learning, lots of activities and different things. And then pretty much the whole of August is internships, and internships are run through J Internship, which is the largest provider of internships in Israel. Our students in the past have managed to intern at hospitals, think tanks, financial firms, work with special needs children, work in schools, really like all kinds of different things. And it's really been an incredible opportunity for them. And then into September and October, there's normally some more learning. September and sometimes into October are all like the Jewish Chagim, all the Jewish festivals. So Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. And over that time, there's generally a lot of activities and touring and some learning and different things. And then at the end of October and into November is when we go to Europe. And Europe, as I said before, is a trip to Poland, which is really an incredible trip. And we generally run that through J-Routes, which is an amazing organization to facilitate these trips. And then the rest of the Europe trip is generally vastly different to Poland. And there we go to like 4 or 5 different, or 3 or 4 different countries, which in the past has been Paris, Amsterdam, Venice, Norway, Croatia, really all kinds of different things. And we really are hoping to keep adding new places to that list. I tried to push last year for us to go to ski in France, but that didn't happen in the end. Anyway, so we keep trying to adding new places to the list over there. And then after Europe, we come back to Israel, obviously, for the end of the year, programming, activities, different things, pack up, say goodbye, and that brings us to the end of the gap year program. Now, the obviously in terms of coronavirus, there's lots of questions about it and a lot of uncertainty in the world. We're expecting the program to go ahead as normal, and that's what we're planning for. That's what we're preparing all of our service providers for, and that's what we're prepping our staff for, and that's what we're planning on going ahead with. And obviously we'll have to adjust and see what happens, throughout the year. But as we've done this year, we've managed to run a full program aside from the international travel in Israel, even with lockdowns and various restrictions and regulations. And for next year, we feel very confident that we'll be able to do the same. And then obviously, whatever travel or programming is not possible, it will be substituted and replaced. So that's about COVID. I don't know if there are any questions. But I see in the Q&A. So there's a question about, is it a problem for a child who does keep Shabbos in terms of others sharing the apartment or activities organized? So in terms of students who do keep Shabbos, as I said before, the Ohrsom Gap Year program is not a religious program, which means that at no point in the year do we tell students that they have to keep Shabbos or that they have to keep kosher. However, as I said, there is a Shabbos experience, which means that all of our staff do keep Shabbos and are religious, and Jewish learning and Jewish identity and that exposure both to Israel and the various unbelievable educators and speakers that we have in Israel are very important components of the program. And so we have had students in the past who come on our Ohrsom Gap Year program and who do who do keep Shabbos or have kept Shabbos before, and that hasn't really been a problem. Of course, it has sometimes been a little bit difficult for the student because they're in an apartment generally with people who don't speak who don't keep Shabbos. However, it has been manageable, and generally our philosophy about this is that we try to focus on the student, meaning that it's not just as simple as like whether or not a person keeps Shabbos, but whether or not they come, on the whole, not whether or not whether or not the student keeps Shabbos is not the deciding factor on whether or not they fit or appropriate for our program. And we try to prioritize the student and focus on each person as an individual. So definitely reach out. We can have an interview and take it from there. Are there options in terms of levels of Jewish learning? Yes, there are options at certain parts during the year, but sometimes it's just like the same standard for everyone. But again, something that definitely should be discussed in a more private forum. So please reach out and we can arrange a meeting or conversation about it. Are there many free weekends? Yes, there are free weekends. About every third week is a free weekend. However, that obviously also shifts based on the programming. So generally, like around Pesach time, when there's Pesach and then India, there's less free weeks over that specific period. But in regular programming during the year, there's free weekends. However, it's also important to state that at no point during the 10 months of the program do you have to leave your apartment. So even during a free weekend, you still have access to your apartment, and you can still stay there, and we'll still provide you with food if that's what you want. And then in terms of the cost, then do you have to participate in the whole 10 months? So in terms of the whole 10 months, yes, you do have to participate in the whole 10 months. However, there sometimes are specific exceptions. And again, if there's a specific reason to leave, or like such as university starting somewhere in the Northern Hemisphere, then we can discuss that. But in general, yes, you do have to participate in the whole 10 months. And in terms of the cost, this gap year program, as I'm sure you can see, is truly incredible. And the cost of it or the cost to company at least, is extremely high. It costs us per student roughly $35,000 which is an extravagant amount of money. And Ohrsom Student is a non-profit organization, which means that we prioritize getting students onto our programs, and to this end we fundraise extensively and continuously. So despite the fact that it costs for each of our students, it costs us about $35,000 to come on the program, we fundraise and have lowered the price that the student is responsible for to about $25,000. And then with MASA funding, right? Obviously, we're a MASA registered program, and MASA is very, very important and helps us to facilitate all of our programs, and also just helps us to look after our students in Israel and all different things. So we rely very heavily on MASA to make all of this possible. And so with MASA funding and additional potential bursaries and fundraising, the fee that the student will end up paying is $19,000. And that's in total for the whole year. That includes an allocation towards flights, all accommodation, programming, and different things throughout the whole year. There's just like a few things that aren't included in that, and that's things like a cell phone contract, visas, linen, bus driver tips, and like personal expenditure, such as if you want to go to a restaurant or go out, or shopping, or all that kind of stuff. I don't know if there are any other questions. I don't see any questions in the Q&A or in the chat. So I'm going to assume that there's no other questions, and we're going to wrap up now. Just the last thing I wanted to say is that the goal of the Ohrsom Gap Year program is really to empower our students. Our goal is to empower our students with real world skills and experiences. And that means that we want to give them things that will build them in a wholesome fashion across all of the various aspects of life, everything from their CV and resume to Jewish identity and connection to the land of Israel and what it is to be a proud Jew in the modern world, and just in general to have fun and experiences and grow themselves and try new things and develop themselves. And one of the activities that we do during the year is a skydiving. Is skydiving. So normally we do it in Europe. Sometimes we've done it in Israel, and it's really like just incredible to see all of our students coming from South Africa, Australia, different backgrounds, different people, and really engaging with themselves, pushing themselves to do something that they wouldn't have normally done in the regular course of life. And it's really an incredible opportunity for students. As you probably saw there, our contact information was on the screen, but if you have any questions, you can reach out to us, and we're happy to set up an interview and a meeting and just to have another conversation about it. Thank you all for making the time, and it was such a privilege and pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you, Morty. I don't know if you saw the question in the chat. You might have answered, I'm not sure, but what is the cost for this? I think you answered that question, but how is the travel linked to Jewish identity, or is it more for bonding?
So the travel, so the cost for this, I think I touched on, and in terms of the travel being linked to Jewish identity, or is it more for bonding? So different elements of the travel are for different things. Poland is obviously very Jewish identity focused, and that's like really, really important. I think that going to Poland, seeing the history and everything that's happened there is obviously very important for any young Jewish person in the world. And in general, our Jewish identity is like all kinds of it manifests itself in all kinds of different ways. So one of our students from 2018, a South African girl, I was talking to her after the Gap Year program about like her favorite parts of the program and the things that like made the most impact on her. And one of the things that she raised, which I didn't necessarily think about before, but she mentioned how special it was to travel across Europe in a Jewish way, like organizing kosher food and seeing like different Jewish communities and being involved with like all kinds of different things. So although like the travel component isn't like the biggest element of the year and isn't super focused on Jewish identity and like that kind of stuff, the concept of being Jewish and being proudly Jewish is something that manifests itself really across the board, just in the way that you behave and the way that you act every place that you go. Okay.
Thank you.
I don't see any other questions. And wrap up there. Thank you all.
We do have one more question. I think we might have time for one more, but what proportion of participants are Australian?
So it depends on the year, obviously. This year, Gap Year 2020, is the first time that we've had a big group from Australia. And that's because Ohrsom students in Australia, while being, I don't know, more than a decade old in South Africa, is only 4 or 5 years old in Australia. And so the proportion of students for this year, Gap Year 2020, was about a third or so were Australian, a little bit more than a third were Australian. And for next year, it looks like we're going to have a very big group from Australia. We've already had more than 30 people, I think, apply for the Gap Year program from Australia. And so it's going to be, I think, quite a big group, please God, from Australia, which is very exciting for us.
Great. All right. Well, we don't have any more time for questions, but we thank you so much, and please direct any questions directly to Morty or the Ohrsom team.